Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hello everyone. Thank you for following me to my new show. As I mentioned at the end of my last episode of MS Gamer's Hut, I'm making some big changes to my show. First, I'm changing the name to You're More Than Your MS, because we are more than our MS, and MS is such a small part of who we are. I'm still into gaming. Even though mobile gaming is one of my passions, there are so many other things that I'm into and passionate about, like TV, movies, books, and many other things. This new format will give me the platform to expand my reviews for you guys. I will be reviewing different things each week to help you find new and interesting things to do. I will try to keep the reviews fresh with new stuff mixed in with some of my old favorite classics. I'm so excited for this change, so let's get started. The first movie I'm going to review is a Netflix original called Bright.
We're broken people now. We're burning out. So cold and bleeding now, now. Gonna let you down. We're broken people now.
I won't never be nothing, ain't that something? I've risen from the bottom, I got 'em, eyes on the prize, and inside 'em, damn right I overcame. Y'all know the name, we similar but never been the same. Everybody, yeah, they know the name. Right now, I'ma make it somehow, make it some way. Yeah, you know we gon' get it today. Like, I'm all on my own now, but won't ever let you down, won't let you down. Yes, I've been through it, they know I do it for the people I'm fighting, so we be equal for my son and my sequel. And anybody who listening in they system like venom, I get in them and spread viciously. This is me.
We're broken people now. We're burning out. So cold and bleeding now.
Netflix Bright is an ambitious undertaking from the streaming giant. Director David Ayer of Suicide Squad takes Max Landis' script and tries to shape it into something tangible that will neatly fit into a 2-hour runtime. But Bright is a compelling narrative that needed more time to breathe. Landis is building his own version of Lord of the Rings, which is a story you can't rush. Perhaps a sequel or a longer running time would offer this story and the world they created the large content it requires. In Bright, elves, humans, fairies, orcs, and dragons all live together in a world that closely resembles ours. Will Smith plays Officer Daryl Ward, who is forced to partner up with the LAPD's first orc policeman, Nick Jacoby, played by Joel Edgerton. Smith and Edgerton have excellent chemistry as the two very different cops must learn to work together in a world that doesn't think orcs and humans should coexist. While Smith is as full of charm and bravado as ever, it's Edgerton's who steals the show. His portrayal of Jacoby is heartwarming. He's an orc who's out of place in the world of humans and even among his own people. Most of his fellow orcs don't like the idea of him working with the police. Landis' script feels timely with issues of race, gender, national pride, and police brutality echoing throughout the film. There are times when this message can feel heavy-handed, but overall, the use of modern politics issues set in this fantasy world works. The larger story in Bright focuses on a magical wand, reminiscent of Sauron's Ring of Power in Lord of the Rings, that's highly sought after for its abilities. Jacoby refers to it as a nuclear bomb that grants wishes. There is an order of renegade elves called the Inferni that want to use the wand to resurrect an ancient evil referred to as the Dark Lord. While the premise does lead Jacoby and Ward on some exciting adventures, the overall story feels rushed and incomplete. Many of Bright's shortcomings are also due to the poor development of its secondary character. Nami Rapes makes for an imposing villain as the leader of the Inferni, but there's not enough backstory to make her interesting. Her character, Leela, looks incredible, and Rapes is a capable actress, but her characters all show in little substance. Again, Bright needs more time to spread its wings. It feels like Landis and Ayers were trying to cram parts 1, 2, and 3 into one movie. Edgar Ramirez is another underdeveloped character that I wanted to learn more about. Ramirez plays an elf named Kadomir, who is the head of a federal magic task force. Apart from the flamboyant clothes and great skin, he's not given any good material to work with. Kindamir is desperate to find members of the Inferni, but it's unclear as to why. Surely there's a backstory there that didn't make the final cut. On a technical level, Ayers used the muted color and gritty filming locales centered around Los Angeles gives Bright a more authentic look. There's even orc graffiti on the sides of buildings. The fight choreography is fun, especially when the elves join in on the action. Their kicks and flips dazzled in every scene. For the most part, Bright uses practical effects, but when the wands are out and there's a fairy flying around, the special effects are top-notch. Netflix used their $9 million budget to make a visually striking film. Bright has the potential to be something great down the road if the film is successful for Netflix. Unlike Lord of the Rings, Landis and Ayer don't have a plethora of novels to use as a reference. They are creating a world from scratch, one that would have worked better as a television series. The larger canvas of a series would have given these characters and subplots the time they needed to develop into something more meaningful. There was so little time spent learning about how this fantastical world functions because Bright was in such a hurry to get to the end. At the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con, Ayer stated that he already knows what he'd like to do for the second film if it gets picked up. He wants to delve deeper into the elf and orc societies, which is great, but if that never happens, Bright will remain an underdeveloped film. Bright could have been something truly special if it had slowed down the pace of its narrative to allow for a fuller exploration of its engaging world. Will Smith and Joel Edgerton are a compelling duo I'd love to see again in a sequel or even a new series produced by Netflix. So hopefully this isn't the last you'll see of the world of Bright. Next, let's move over to TV with this Netflix original, Grace and Frankie, which has run for 4 seasons now.
Something ain't right.
Grace and Frankie is a post-apocalyptic drama, for its title characters at least. The first scene of the series starts up with the premise with the blunt force of a nuclear explosion. Two women pushing 70 learn their husbands have been in a homosexual relationship for 20 years and are filing for divorce so they can marry each other because we can do that now. Robert, which played by Martin Sheen, blurts out. Everything that follows happens in the fallout of that revelation, which proves understandably devastating for both Grace, played by Jane Fonda, and Frankie, played by Lillian Tomlin, and leads to them cohabitating in the wreckage of their lives. Created by Marta Hoffman and Howard J. Morris, who boast easily hundreds of episodes of multi-camera experience between them, Grace and Frankie occasionally sink into dialogue written with a pacing that anticipates the laughter of a studio audience, but there's no studio audience. There's instead only the silence of empty rooms and broken hearts. Which is to say that in the show's credit, it takes its premise extremely serious, really digging into the emotional reality that Saul, played by Sam Waterston, and Robert's revelation means for them and their families. But quite frankly, it takes a long time for things to feel at all funny. I clocked my first real chuckle at about 15 minutes into the first episode. If you were expecting a hilarious comedy, downgrade those expectations appropriately, and instead look forward to what, with some patience, could be an intriguing portrait of modern relationship anchored by some incredible talent. The toughest thing Grace and Frankie have to overcome is also one of its greatest strengths. Its iconic quartet of stars are so keenly iconic that hooking into their characters proved tough. This is especially tough because, initially, the writing doesn't do them a ton of favors. Painting Fonda and Tomlin pretty bluntly into their stereotypical boxes. Fonda as the tight-laced type A perfectionist with a fondness for vodka, and Tomlin as a easygoing hippie type who freely experiments with substances of all kinds. It's a classic odd couple pairing that gets leaned on a little hard for its comedy potential. It's an understandable instinct, given the brutal truth of what these women are experiencing, but one that lacks the subtlety of later episodes. Meanwhile, Martin Sheen's Robert, early on, is solid but straight-laced to the point of blandness, lacking real definition beyond reacting to Grace's anger or Saul's affection in the early episode. Once he loosens up a little bit, Robert and Saul's relationship becomes a much more believable thing. Waterston actually proves a key factor of the series, as the character of Saul is revealed over the course of the first 6 episodes as both a man who you'd believe as both a successful lawyer and a loopy Frankie partner for 40 years. Of the 4, Saul is maybe the first to really stand out as a unique character with a unique point of view, an essential quality that the series' long-term survival. This isn't to say that everything involved isn't acting their butts off. Fonda, in particular, does some lovely subtle work, including a scene in front of her bathroom mirror that's almost on par with Viola Davis' big wig moment from How to Get Away with Murder. In Ethan Embry and Baron Vaughn, Brooklyn Deckard, and June Diane Rachel as the adult children confronted by their new reality of their parents' lives get some outstanding moments. Rachel, or Raphael, not Rachel, I'm sorry, Raphael in particular gets real opportunities to shine despite both Toblin and Fonda, and Decker brings an unexpected spunk and depth. Perhaps one of Grace and Frankie's strongest moves, especially in early episodes, is not to dump a ton of backstory on the audience all at once, especially when it comes to the lives of the children. After 6 episodes, there's still more to be revealed, but about everyone, which is promising for the series that is driven almost entirely by its characters. It's worth noting, Grace and Frankie doesn't lack humor. There are plenty of sharp jokes and great beats. But even ever since its original announcement, Grace and Frankie has carried a number of burdens. Not just the high anticipated reunion of Tomlin and Fonda, who started in the beloved 1980 comedy 9 to 5, but also the political, emotional weight of its premise. While its engagement with both factors isn't flawless, it does build over the course of the first 6 episodes, a luxury that other Netflix series has ultimately utilized to brilliant effects. It might take a little while, but Grace and Frankie has the capability to be something really, really special. And in the meantime, what we have isn't half bad. Here is another Netflix original for you, Stranger Things, which has run 2 seasons now. Stranger Things is a loving homage to great sci-fi thrillers of the 1990s or 1980s, Poltergeist, E.T., and others. You may have heard that already, but there's another reason the 8-episode Netflix series is so memorable. It also harks back to the time when TV and popular culture seems to be more innocent, less complicated, and simply more fun than it is today. The San Francisco tourist industry struggles to explain street mystery to Bay Area families' arduous quest to create a backyard, perhaps for a rare celestial. The series was developed by brothers Matt and Ross Duffer, and of course, it's set in the 1980s. 4 boys are riding bikes around town at night when one of them, Will, played by Noah Schnapp, goes missing near a heavily guarded, mysterious installation that purports to be an electric utility. Joyce, played by Winona Ryder, his single mom, goes into panic but it takes a while for the officialdom to respond. Right away, there are two reminders that was then and this is now. First, kids certainly ride bikes these days, but you don't see them in films and TV as much as you used to, because riding bikes is a carefree activity, and kids don't seem as carefree in the 21st century. It's probably an exaggeration, but if you see a kid riding a bike in a movie today, you're likely to expect him to get kidnapped. Second, now the whole idea of a missing kid in an instant triggered for panic and calling in every available resource. Here it is, left to the town police chief, Hopper, played by David Harbour, to calm Joyce down and assure her she has nothing to worry about. He doesn't even want to take her call at first until he's had time to have his coffee. More to the point, he doesn't call in the state police or any other authority. It's hard to imagine that would happen if the story was set in our time. There were no Amber Alerts in the 80s. Joyce is determined to find her younger son, as are his three friends: Lucas, played by Malcolm McLaughlin, Mike, played by Finn Wolfhard, and Dustin, played by Gatton Marizo. The boys tool over town on their bikes, trying to find Will and to protect a strange young girl with a boy's haircut, whose name is 11, played by Millie Bobby Brown. Mike's sister Nancy, played by Natalia Dyer, and Will's older brother, a photography geek and loner named Jonathan, played by Charlie Heaton, are eventually drawn into the search for the boy. Then there's the mystery of what goes on inside the so-called electric utility compound, and how Matthew Modine, as Dr. Martin Brenner, maintains such a full head of white hair. So let's just stop right there with plot summary. It's not nice to go into too much detail about any forthcoming TV show, but to reveal anything more about Stranger Things would be almost criminal, given how much fun the Doffer brothers clearly had putting this gem together. There are many ways to enjoy Stranger Things, including identifying the loving references to great films of the 90s. Poltergeist is referenced directly into a piece of dialogue early on. You can also keep an eye out for a tender nod to E.T. as Mike hides 11 in a closet in his room. And you probably won't be wrong to picture Stand By Me in your mind as you watch Will and his friends. The 80s were hardly an iconic time in American history, quite the opposite in many ways. In some fronts, the nation seemed to be in denial, lulled by a post-Me decade sense of well-being, by a seemingly robust economy, a reassurance in chief who kept jelly beans on his desk in the White House, and popular entertainment that was very much escapist, but without the identifying objects to put out of our minds. Escapist fare in the 30s gave Americans respite from worry about the Depression. Movies of the 40s helped them temporarily park worries about the war. Escapist fare in the 1990s was different. It felt more celebratory than escapist. Mark's Vento is Joe Huge, a 5-year-old with autism, and Morven Christie is his mother in The A Word. Too many storylines hobble Sundance's series on autism. Bill Estrin and Julie Klausner creates the star in Difficult People. Easy to laugh at second sense of Difficult People. Rise Marquand Engine lived are charged forever in HBO's gripping night. E.T. told us aliens were our friends. Starman suggested they could fall in love with us. Cocoon told us not to be afraid of dying. Teen Misfits built a perfect woman who comes to life in Weird Science. A teen werewolf became the most popular kid in school, and some actor went back to the future in a souped-up DeLorean. Dallas and Dynasty told us everyone could be rich, and Michael Jackson's bubbly post-disco music thrilled us. We're back to the traditional form of escapism in the 21st century, and for good and obvious reasons. Post 9/11, the world seems like a very dangerous place, and no one can be sure who is watching. Our lives feel transparent, unsettled, and news overflows with shock and surprise. No one is safe, according to the night is dark and full of terror in shows like Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad, The Wire, Homeland, Persons of Interest. Stranger Things reminds us of a time marked by a kind of no-strings escapism, and as it does so, we find ourselves yearning for it because the Doffers have made it so irresistibly appealing. There may be another quality great show to watch this summer, but I guarantee you won't have more fun watching any of them than you will watching Stranger Things. Well, my friends, this brings us to the end of my new show. I hope you enjoyed everything and will get a chance to check out the things I reviewed for you. And I hope you return for even more reviews next week. I would like to thank MS&Me Radio and my listeners for giving me the opportunity to share my passions with you. Good night, and always remember, you're more than your MS.